So I would like to welcome everyone to the February coffee break for London Scottish House. This month I am delighted to be joined by Mark Tate, the CEO of the Cairngorm Business Partnership. He has very kindly donated some of his time to help answer some questions on Scottish tourism as the main theme, but we're going to kind of cover a couple of other areas as well. An obvious theme and topic is COVID and the impact of that, and also the kind of runoff from the most recent announcements over the last couple of days from our respective governments. So I just very quickly, London Scottish House is the Scottish home in London for cultural and business and kind of all the other activities. We're a social enterprise, and my name is Lettie West. I run the kind of community engagement. I am head of relationships and marketing, so anything to do with the people side of the place, and that's what I do. So Mark, hello, welcome. Can you tell me a little bit about who you are and how you got to be CEO of the Cairngorm Business Partnership?
Okay, yes, thanks Lettie, and hello, and thank you everybody for the invite to talk today. So I'm Mark Tate, as Lettie says, Chief Executive of Cairngorm's Business Partnership. I'm lucky to live in Kingussie in the Cairngorms National Park in Scotland, which has been, as if there's a place to be locked down, then this has definitely been the place to be locked down over the past 12 months or so. I sort of came to work for the Cairngorms Business Partnership. Firstly, a little bit about the Cairngorms Business Partnership. We're first and foremost, we're a Chamber of Commerce for the National Park, so we're a private sector organisation. We represent businesses in the Cairngorms National Park, and businesses basically sign up to be members. We have a little over 400 members right across the National Park, which is the largest national park in the UK. So very rural businesses, very tourism focused. And you can imagine the last 12 months for the tourism industry has been exceptionally challenging. My background is actually in banking. I worked for HSBC all over the world for 20 years and moved from place to place, from country to country every couple of years. Eventually landed in Scotland to be head of corporate and commercial banking in Scotland. And then after I'd done my couple of years in Scotland, got a tap on the shoulder and decided actually it's time to throw in the towel. So I left banking. I say we because the whole family seemed to be in banking because they just kind of followed me around the world. And we moved up to the Cairngorms. I did a little stint working for the Scottish Government on a community broadband project, and then the chief executive of the Cairngorms Business Partnership. I saw it advertised, and it was an opportunity not to be missed, and that is six years almost ago now, which is phenomenal. It's the longest time I've ever been in one single post, but by a long way. And I love it. I love working here, living here. One of the big attractions of the job, I have to say, is it's 3 days a week. So whilst it hasn't felt like, or hasn't been 3 days a week for the past 12 months, and normally it enables a good, healthy work-life balance.
That sounds brilliant, and hopefully it'll be another 6 years in the post.
A few years yet, anyway.
What's the most enjoyable part of your job, do you think?
I think just getting to work in this amazing place, and one of the most enjoyable parts of my job, which I've really missed over the past 12 months, is getting out, seeing people, seeing businesses, helping businesses, events, trying to and we, as the Cairngorms Business Partnership, operate the destination management organisation, which is Visit Cairngorm. So our job is to encourage visitors to the national park, and it's a really fulfilling job to encourage, to inspire people to come and responsibly visit this amazing place, and in doing so help businesses to thrive and communities to thrive.
Yeah, I can completely see why you've been there for 6 years. What is it about Scotland, do you think, that really kind of made you want to settle?
It was kind of it was a bit of a dream come true when I moved here with HSBC. I mean, Scotland is the best country in the world. As you may imagine, I'm not Scottish. I'm a Scouser. And if Liverpool was in Scotland, that would be perfection. But it isn't. It's always been a place that I've come to. I've always been a massive fan of the outdoors. So I've been coming to Scotland, to the Cairngorms, for all my life, basically, walking, climbing, skiing, and so we always had a bit of a dream to retire to the Highlands and to Scotland. And then when the role came up with HSBC in Scotland, I kind of jumped at that opportunity. And once we were here, we were never going to leave, really, and wondered why on earth we were waiting for retirement to move to the Highlands and to the Cairngorms.
Yeah, and you obviously will be quite a key part of your own local community, and I wonder, what role does community play in tourism in Scotland?
I think the last 12 months has really brought it home to me just how much the communities are part of the visitor experience. And Scottish national parks are fairly unique in the way that they were put together, and the boundaries were deliberately drawn around the communities. And the first aim of the park is both about the nature and the culture, and the cultural heritage of our communities. So communities play such a massive part in the visitor experience. We have something like 19,000 residents in the Cairngorms National Park, and 2 million visitors a year, which 4.7 million visitor days. So on average, there are 10,000 visitors every day in the national park. Of course, we have seasonal peaks, and in the summer, we can expect the population to double with visitors. So a community is an integral part of the visitor experience, but visitors are an integral part of our communities as well. They're the lifeblood of our local shops and facilities. And I think that again has really been brought home in the last 12 months, and that's partly why we've done a lot of work and plan to do more work as we look to reopen again, to engage communities and give communities confidence in welcoming visitors back to the national park.
And you've alluded to the last 12 months, and obviously we are about to hit the anniversary of the first lockdown. How do you think Scottish tourism has been impacted by the pandemic as a whole, and the more than one lockdown that we've seen over the last 12 months?
It's impossible to quantify. It's massive, and I know it's we've all seen our own impacts in the places where we work and our own communities. Here, particularly in the Cairngorms and in the Highlands of Scotland, where we're so reliant on the visitor economy, there's effectively been zero income, and that is devastating for businesses, devastating for communities. It has demonstrated how resilient, how entrepreneurial businesses and communities are, because many have survived, many will survive, and not underestimating how difficult a task that has been. But they've done it, and lots of businesses will earn money from multiple sources as well. They'll have a winter business, a summer business, an autumn business, and therefore they've fallen through lots of cracks in the support. Scotland as a whole is a big international destination, and of course the international travel trade has been completely decimated, and doesn't look like it's going to come back for the balance of this year, although Boris Johnson was fairly bullish about it on Monday. I think Nicola Sturgeon was less bullish about it yesterday, and I think realistically we can't really envisage a return to a return to international travel as we've known it for the balance of this year, and that's 25% of our visitors in the national park are international, so that's huge. And as I said before, that there's such a reliance on the visitor economy, that we've dry cleaning businesses, the whole supply chain to the visitor economy is really struggling.
So would you say that lack of visitors is the biggest challenge facing the communities in the Cairngorms?
I think it's the challenges change as you move through the various transitions of lockdown and not being locked down, and most definitely right now the lack of visitors, the lack of income is a huge challenge. If we go back to October to December last year was probably the most challenging part of the last 12 months, because in the Highlands and in most parts of the national park, we were in a lower COVID tier, so businesses were allowed to open. But most of our visitors come from either England, 25% of our visitors from England, 48% from Scotland. Most of those from the Central Belt. Our visitors were not allowed to come. So the businesses, because they were in a lower tier, weren't getting the support that businesses in a higher tier got, but demand was still completely decimated. So that's, so a lack of income is a significant challenge. As we move out of lockdown, there's a huge desire from people, and this is one of the big opportunities we see coming out of this crisis. There's a big desire of people to rediscover nature, to visit the countryside, and that again brings its challenges, because sometimes they all want to do it at once and they all want to go to the places that they've heard of, and we've got a role to play as the destination organisation through Visit Cairngorms to help to give the visitors the right information they need to enjoy the area responsibly.
And you say enjoy the area responsibly. What did you see happen as a result of people kind of finding that they wanted to reconnect with nature and all kind of descending on the beauty spots of with the great names?
I think the first thing to say is the vast majority of our visitors do visit responsibly. The vast majority, the national park during July to September last year managed visitors extremely well. Businesses were ready. We did loads of work with businesses and with partners and the National Park Authority and others to ensure that we were ready to welcome visitors. So overall, the experience was extremely positive, and both from a visitor sort of perspective and from a COVID perspective. We welcomed well over 1 million visitors between mid-July and the end of September, and didn't have a single COVID-related visitor-related COVID case or cluster, which shows how hospitality had invested in welcoming visitors with confidence. There were, of course, some areas that suffered. There were some areas in the national park where there were too many visitors. That there was a cadre of visitors that are new to the national park that maybe don't understand how to behave in that environment, and so there's a lot of work happening this year to try and reach those visitors, because we haven't got them in our social media. We've got 120,000 followers on social media, but they're generally people who've been before, who love the place, that we talk to and encourage to come. That kind of new wave of visitors, whilst it's a great opportunity, I think we've all got a responsibility to make sure that we can welcome them in a responsible way.
Exactly, and I think my next question is kind of linked to that. Is there anything that you did last time when after the first lockdown lifted that you would do differently as things ease this time round?
Yeah, I think there's always particularly with the last 12 months, every day's been a school day, and except for school pupils, ironically, but every day's been a school day, and there are always things that you would do differently. I think we understand now where the where those hotspots will be, and we will work even harder with partners to make sure that there's better management for visitors within those hotspots, and that's not massively our responsibility, but we have a responsibility to ensure the communication of that management for visitors is effective. But where our responsibility is to make sure that we're promoting areas that that can better accommodate visitors, and perhaps spread the load a little bit if we're to see, and I'm sure we will see, another significant spike of visits to the national park.
Yeah, I hope so, because as someone who grew up in the national park, it's somewhere that I treasure deeply, and can't wait to get back there. What would you say to the businesses who have obviously really struggled in terms of the changes and opportunities that have come up in the last year to do something slightly different? Trying to be an optimist here, looking at how they can take advantage of a change.
Yeah, I think as I say, that businesses to survive in a rural economy, I think need to be entrepreneurial, need to be flexible, and I think the businesses here really evidenced last year just how entrepreneurial and flexible that they can be. When we were faced with some of the guidelines around reopening, we did a lot of work pulling businesses together to talk about how we could make that work. And whilst the initial reaction was it's impossible, lots of businesses actually for that short period did open, did operate effectively, did do things differently in the way that they in the sort of groups that they accepted and managed, and some probably won't go back. Some have found different ways of working that will last for a long time, and particularly around just simple things like businesses, rather than being completely open, walk in, just selling day tickets, and better using the resources that are available. I don't feel I've explained that particularly well, but there are massive opportunities, and there are big opportunities with this new audience that are coming to the national park and to the rural to rural Scotland and elsewhere as well.
And you talk about the new visitors. How do you hope to kind of engage with them? So you say that you're quite well engaged with those who have visited before. Do you have a strategy around trying to make sure that once they've visited, you can kind of collect them up as proper followers, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think once they visited, that they become followers and they will become ambassadors. Our challenge is getting to them before they visit, and that's really something that we started addressing last year. I think it was probably around July time last year when all the media was full of kind of dirty camping stories and camper vans and litter and lots and lots of negativity. So with a couple of other organisations similar to ours, we started some work with Visit Scotland to try and change that message around and make it more positive and make it more welcoming. And we did that by speaking with, in Scotland, there's the BBC have a BBC social media channel that has the sort of audiences that we look to attract, and we used influencers and bloggers and to post content that would reach the audiences that we haven't got in our arsenal, and that work has carried on. It's kind of morphed into more national managing for visitors work now with the park authorities, with Visit Scotland, with the landowners, Forestland Scotland. And there's a whole range of work groups from camping to litter to dogs to camper vans, looking at how we can effectively message those audiences and speak to those audiences and give them the right information that they need pre-arrival and inspire them to do the right things. I think one of the things, the National Park Authority here employed some seasonal rangers last year to help manage the challenges with visitors, and I think that's now going to become a permanent thing, hopefully. And one of the things that those rangers found and other rangers found is that when they talk to visitors who are perhaps behaving irresponsibly, the vast majority of them, the reaction is one of shock, because they simply don't know that the behavior that they're exhibiting is irresponsible. Because if we ever watch the television, every time we see a campsite, we see a fire. So that's what you do when you go camping, you have a fire, and people don't, may not appreciate that. The litter that leaves behind, but the fact that fires can fester underground for days, and then a gust of wind can come and set light to a whole forest. But people don't know that, and once that's explained to people, once they're helped to understand that, then maybe I'm just an eternal optimist, but I think that the vast majority of people don't come here to damage the environment they've come to visit. The very small minority who are willfully destructive, then that's a separate issue and needs to be dealt with in a separate way. But I see our job as the destination organisation is to inspire people to enjoy the area responsibly.
Yeah, and you talking about kind of the environmental impact of visitors. Can you talk a little bit more about that in terms of large visitor numbers, especially when maybe environments have got used to low traffic, in both car traffic and people traffic, litter and things like that, and kind of the environmental impact on having was it 1 million visitors over 3 months last year? That must have some kind of impact, surely.
It does have an impact. It has an impact on, it has a big positive impact on the level of services that are provided for local communities. But we are in the, it's 1 million people across an area the size of Belgium. And there are probably no more than half a dozen spots that act as real honeypots and can become exceptionally busy on days, and those same areas midweek can be nice and quiet. So I think it's that's back to communication. I mean, we did a lot of work last year around the communications framework that was particularly COVID related, but I think applies to all visitor communications, which we call the Cairngorm's Together framework, which was developed by businesses and the Park Authority and a whole range of partners. And that had four simple messages, which was: one, understand the guidelines. And this was for everybody. This was for businesses, it was for visitors, communities. Understand the guidelines, plan ahead. And we provided tools for people to do that by upgrading our website. 3, be flexible. So if you arrive somewhere and it's too busy, then don't look at everybody else and wonder why they're there. Look at yourself and wonder why you're there, and move on. And then the 4th one was just be kind. Be kind to each other, be kind to the environment. Leave no trace, leave the place as you found it. So I think we've plenty of space. We've plenty of space to accommodate more visitors. We just need to make sure that we manage well for those visitors.
Talking about the large area that the Cairngorms National Park and the National Park Authority look after, where's your favourite place, do you think, in the whole of the Cairngorms?
Quite tough. That's a really good question. I probably, I think what COVID has done is I thought I understood the area, the sort of 5 miles around my house really, really well. And that kind of first lockdown when we had to exercise from home proved to me that I didn't actually know the 5 miles around my house as well as I thought. And I think the greatest pleasure has been discovering things that are, even I've lived here now for 8 years, and I still discover things that are available from a doorstep within 20 minutes that I didn't know were there. And so I think there's a wee little hill behind behind my house that you can just, you can walk up it in called Craig Beg, and you can walk up it in half an hour. It's 450 meters tall or something, I think. But the views are spectacular. You very seldom see anybody else, and it's just gorgeous. So I think there's, and that's really a good lesson for visitors as well. There's so many hidden gems, some of which those of us on the call that live here want to remain hidden gems. But there are so many hidden gems and places for people to explore and discover. And even last summer when there were places where the car parks were exceptionally busy, but you walk away from the car park for 10 minutes and sometimes didn't see another soul all day again. So it's we don't have a challenge of spaces and beautiful places. We just need to make sure we manage them well, and that's our responsibility, the Park Authority's responsibility, on behalf of the communities and people who live here and care for the place.
Yeah, I think you're not alone in saying that you've discovered a hell of a lot more in your local vicinity than you ever thought you would, and having the time to do that is actually a gift that nobody thought that they would want.
Yeah, and the first lockdown was, I said before, I know how lucky we were to live in a place like this when we were locked down, and the weather was fantastic, and the whole family was home. There were lots of personal positives which you almost feel a bit guilty about, because there's lots and lots of struggles as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. Going back to the COVID and the restrictions and things like that for a moment, what do you think the impact of the kind of mixed messages that we've had over the last couple of days, from the optimism of Boris potentially on Monday to the very guarded nature of the Scottish government yesterday, how do you think that's going to impact the visitors potentially, and the businesses that will be trying to work out how they're going to earn a living over the next 6 to 12 months?
I think that there was, we had a call this morning with some businesses, and I've spoken to a lot of businesses since yesterday's announcements by the First Minister, and I think there was an expectation certainly that we would hear a lot more yesterday, and there was an expectation that we would hear something closer to what Boris Johnson announced on Monday, albeit Nicola Sturgeon has said all along that that she won't put specific dates on things, but we were anticipating a more detailed roadmap. We knew that we were going to go back to a tier system in Scotland, and we were anticipating details of those tiers and when they may be introduced. And none of that really was forthcoming. So it was incredibly frustrating for businesses in terms of planning. However, watching the First Minister's press conference today, I think there was a backlash yesterday. There was a backlash from ourselves, from other business organisations, and the approach of today's press conference had significantly softened. And she actually said a couple of times that she would expect Scotland to be around 2 weeks behind England in terms of reopening now, which gives us a little bit more comfort. And there'll be more detail over the next couple of weeks. But one of the really critical and concerning things is the disparity between Scotland's reopening and England's reopening at the moment, and for much of last year meant that travel was not allowed between England and Scotland. And England is such a core and important market for Scotland. We at Visit Cairngorms invested heavily in marketing and promoting the Cairngorms to London and the southeast of England about 3 years ago, and we've seen a significant increase in visitors from that area since then. We urgently need clarity on what the position will be for travel within the UK over the next 3 months, because lots of businesses are sitting on bookings that they've probably already rolled over 3 times. from visitors from England, and they simply don't know if they can come. And also we've got people in England being told you can book self-catering accommodation from mid-April, whatever it was, 16th of April or something like that, I think it was. So there'll be people in England who would come to Scotland, because of the lack of clarity at the moment, will be instead booking in the Peak District or the Lake District or Cornwall. So at the moment it's putting Scotland at a significant competitive disadvantage.
Yeah, and that's obviously quite a worry for everyone. So hopefully we will get some kind of clarity around that. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you personally have learned over the last year?
Don't go into lockdown without getting a haircut first, I think. I did shave it all off a couple of days ago because I got so sick.
You look quite tidy.
Yeah, that's because I got my 16-year-old to take a razor to it 2 days ago because it was completely annoying me. Personally, I think probably linked to what we were just talking about is a little bit of patience, and I'm pretty sure that within the next 2 weeks we'll receive a lot more from the Scottish government in terms of clarity, and from what the First Minister was saying today, that will give us everything that we need. I think maybe we all just need to learn to be just a tad bit more patient, and certainly I do, because I'm probably a bit feisty and reactive, and I just need to stop and think sometimes, and that's been even more important to think over the past 12 months, is to, and it goes back to the communities as well, and listen, understand the real genuine fears that people have about particularly around the last reopening, when there was no vaccine and the disease was still out there. And so I think I don't know, humility, listening, not reacting.
Yeah, I think you talking about you kind of need that balance, especially in your job. Yeah, I think you're doing a good job as far as I can tell. On that good job, what would you like your legacy to be as chief exec?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really think about legacies and things like that. I think, I'd really like to make a difference in a number of things. First, from a visitor perspective, we've tried for 6 years, but I think now, actually, ironically, we have a better opportunity than ever to really nail this responsible tourism thing, because there's such a there seems to be a lot of momentum behind it at the moment. So I think we've got the opportunity to make a significant difference in that area. And then with the Chamber of Commerce hat on, that there's massive structural challenges within the national park. House prices are 30% above the Scottish national average, but wages are 87% of the Scottish national average. So that's a fundamental economic disconnect that we really need to tackle. And there's no silver bullet, and therefore, I've not found any answers to that question in the last 6 years. But we need to find answers to enable people who want to live here, work here, care for the national park, to enable them to do so. And that's probably a mix of trying to raise wages, so to raise the value of the visitor economy and diversification, and also try and bring that gap down from house prices. So I think that there's some big challenges that remain out there, and none of them have been made any easier by COVID. I mean, all the Zoopla statistics suggest that there's never been more interest in buying a house in rural Scotland, and particularly in the Cairngorms. So we expect demand to go up even more. So there's some big issues that still need sorting before I feel ready to move on.
Well, I think that's quite a good place to come to any questions from the group. Robert's asked about the snow levels across the park, and obviously that you had a huge amount of snow, that, as far as I can tell, and Sarah's confirmed it, that it's disappearing almost as quickly as it's fallen. Do you want to talk a little bit about the impact that the pandemic's had?
Yeah, I mean, I almost didn't want to mention the snow, because if there's any snow lovers out there, and skiers and boarders, it has been the best season for 10 years at least. I can, as I say, I've lived here for 8 years, but I've been coming here for a very long time, and I can't remember the snow being so low for so long. And I'm in the west of the national park. In the east of the national park, it's been even more phenomenal. But as I look out of my window, I can see a floodplain, and I can see where all the snow has gone. The floodplain is fairly full at the moment. But there's still snow about, Robert. There's still skiing to be had. You just have to work a bit harder to get to it. And I think it's due to get a bit colder towards the end of next week. So hopefully we'll be skiing into spring, and maybe even skiing at a time when we can invite some visitors. We normally get a couple of dumps of snow end of March, beginning of April time. So we've had a brilliant snow season, but it's not done yet, and hopefully we'll be able to share it with some visitors as well.
Yeah, we've definitely had snow in June, so this year's going to be no different. We're in that fake spring before spring actually comes. I mean, I learned to ski at Glen Shee, and I was very lucky that was at a time where we had guaranteed snow every year. We'd all the kids would be piled into a bus, and we'd all go up for ski week. Do you think that there's any chance that kind of thing will come back for kids, for local kids going and learning to ski? Do you think that we might have?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with another hat. I'm actually chair of Cairngorm Ski Club, and 3 years ago we managed to get skiing back on the school curricula for high schools, for the 2 high schools on this side of the national park, this side on the west of the national park. We managed to get skiing back on the school curricula. So and it was going to run this year as well, and it would have been phenomenal. So kids get to go as part of their PE curricula. They get to go skiing in the winter, and there's still there are still primary school programs. So yeah, it's not as consistent as it was back in the day, Lettie, but it's still there, it's still available, it's still a massively important part of our winter economy. It's snow sports that brings people here in the winter, and we need to try and shift that, because things are changing, and we all know the climate challenges we face, but the snow's here for a good few decades yet, I think.
Yeah, well, I hope so, because I definitely appreciated my PE lessons, going to learn to ski. Lots of fond memories of eating a brownie in the school bus, all piled up with my old thermos that my dad had packed with hot chocolate in it. So another question that Robert's asked is around Highland Games. Do you think that that's something that might be possible to come back, specifically the Braemar Games, which is obviously the most famous in the world, but obviously almost every town or village across Scotland has got some kind of game.
Yeah, well, events, full stop, are again a massively important part of our economy, and events like the Braemar Games is one of the real flagship events in the national park, draws thousands and thousands of people, and these are the people that will come back year on year and become our loyal advocates. And I am the eternal optimist, so I would say yes. I do get the feeling that things seem really, really tough and really far away at the moment, but and this is a real personal view, but I think when things flip, they'll flip very, very quickly. I think we'll reach a tipping point really quickly, and we'll be surprised at the pace at which some of those events can come back again. So the eternal optimist in me would say that there's a better than 50-50 chance of getting the Highland Games back this year.
I hope so. It might not look the same as it has previously,
No.
but fingers crossed that we get something, keep the tradition alive, if nothing else. Annabelle has asked a question around how you see tourism playing out in the next 5 years in the park. That's quite a big question.
Yeah, it will continue to be a massive part of our economy. I think it will continue to grow. I think the value of tourism will continue to grow. We've been really successful in expanding the international market, and some real quality products, like in Braemar, the Five Arms is an amazing first class high quality product, and we're seeing more and more investments like that across the national park. And I think that the last year will of course be a significant step back and a significant blip in that, but I think the value of that international tourism will increase and help us to raise the bar. I think the value of our own local market we should never lose sight of that, because it will, the core Scottish market, the English market, will be the bread and butter of the visitor economy in the national park, I think, for the foreseeable future. But international tourism is massively important. I think what we'd probably like to see, whilst growing the value of tourism, is also growing the value of the non-visitor economy, so we build a bit more resilience into our communities. I mean, not that we can, hopefully COVID would never happen again, but it has been a really harsh reminder that we need to try to diversify to fill some of these gaps and make our communities more sustainable.
There are quite a lot of businesses who are looking to kind of go into slightly more rural offices, especially businesses potentially that would usually be headquartered in one of the larger English cities, are now looking at going to Scotland. Have you got some kind of idea of trying to capture those and getting them to move to the park?
Yeah, and I think that's the National Park Authority coordinate a National Park Partnership Plan, and that is just being the next version of the plan will run from 2022 to 2027, and that's the consultation process around that is just getting underway. And I think a huge opportunity to diversify the economy is not just from businesses who are looking to relocate, but from individuals, who are looking to relocate, individuals who prove to themselves that they can work from home and use Zoom and go into the office, twice a week. And as we improve communications, we now see we've got a fantastic new sleeper service that goes between London and the national park, and Aberdeen for the east of the national park. As we see those communications improve and increase, I think there's a tremendous opportunity, and we see fibre broadband being rolled out to more and more locations in the national park. And I've been actually, what the crisis has evidenced is that lots of people would say that they couldn't work remotely in the national park before the crisis, but they found a way, and whether so it's proven it's possible. So I think that, Lettie, that there will be tons of opportunities to diversify, to get micro businesses, artisans, and decent businesses who want to relocate to somewhere like the national park.
I think it's a very exciting time. As you say, lots of, almost overnight, pretty much every business in the country had to learn that they could work from home because they had to. So that does allow a lot more opportunity to those who potentially would want to keep some kind of balance of working from home and going into the office a little bit less regularly, and therefore then basing themselves somewhere that's a little bit more rural and getting involved in what's going on there as well as what's going on in the cities. Hopefully that will bring people back and keep local people in the rural areas. It keeps, because I know that's been a bit of an issue for generations, is how do we keep rural communities together without them dissipating and disappearing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So to finish off, I've got a couple of slightly more light-hearted questions. If anyone else has any more questions, please do pop them in the chat, and I will pose them to Mark separately, and then we can get the answers to you. But in the interest of time, I'll ask you these two, and then we'll let you go. What would you say your desert island luxury would be? So if you went on a desert island, what would you absolutely need to have?
My bike, I think. I'd say my skis, but they wouldn't have much use on a desert island, would they?
Well, it depends where the desert island is.
As long as it's a reasonable sized desert island, I'd probably want to take my mountain bike with me.
And what would you say is the best piece of advice anyone's ever given you?
Shut up. on many occasions. I don't know. That's a really tough question. Listen, most.
Sorry, I did say I wasn't going to ask you any difficult questions.
Yeah, I think it is to do with two ears, one mouth. Use them in that order. It's about trying to.
Well, I think that's a fair piece of advice. A lot of people have a lot to learn from everyone else, and I think especially in what you do, listening to what people need is a big part of your job. So it's good advice. Well, I just want to thank everyone very much for joining us this afternoon. Mark, thank you very much. That was extremely interesting. And for those of you who haven't seen, we have a much shorter interview that has gone live on our blog, on our website today that supplements this. So you can just head over to londonscottishhouse.org and pop into the news section, and you'll see Mark in his skis and snow action there, and you can learn a little bit more about who he is. But thank you very much, Mark. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to meet you in person at some point in the not too distant future.
Yep, that would be amazing. Thank you, Lettie. Thank you, everybody.